Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Daily AI Show. It is Wednesday, and that means it's news day. Thank you for watching and listening. And today I'm joined by Beth, and I am Jyunmi. We're going to try and bring you all the most exciting news from around the internet regarding AI and related fields. Usually, we'll come up with a couple of fun, good stories that we never came across, and so this is a great opportunity for us to learn what is out there as well. If you have any questions, please put them in chat, and we will definitely try to get to all of them in the latest news. If you've got a piece of news that we don't talk about, let us know, because we definitely want to learn more about it. So first off, I'm going to throw it to Beth. Beth, what's your most exciting news that you want to talk about today?
Okay, so yesterday the buzz was that OpenAI leaked that one of the OpenAI Sora testers leaked a version of Sora on Hugging Face. And there was a big hullabaloo about whether this was real, whether this was a productivity or publicity stunt, right? But part of the evidence that people thought that it was real was that they shut down the Discord for the for the testers, and the reason for the you can't access this anymore is leak, right? Like Sora leak. Nope, that's why. And so that was really interesting. I'll see if I can share the. Let's see. So the story was broken, as far as I know, around noon yesterday, noon Eastern time. And looks like a group from the early beta testers dropped access to what looks to be Sora's turbo variant. And the leaked version generates 1080p in 10-second clips, and it seems to be processing way faster than Runway, way faster. So it's not just faster than the previous Sora, but it
Mhm.
was faster and better. And this links back to the information reported that a new version of Sora was being worked on to address the long generation times. Because if you remember, when they talked about it in February and they started to show that, it was super long to create stuff, and it wasn't as good as state of the art video generators. And that was February, and things have gotten better since then. So
Right.
potentially built-in features like in painting and image generation. And I will see if I can share my screen. We can see a couple of demos. Here we are.
Sweet. Yeah. I also read on the story that the idea for the Sora renderings were going to be up to a minute, right? Like the duration of the clip was going to be a minute. And then it was taking like 10 minutes to render that. Now, for most people, I think that that might be not acceptable because they're used to how quickly the image generation is for other systems, or even the 10-second clips from Runway. But um, a full minute of video rendering in 10 minutes is nothing new for the video film folks, right? If it was accurate, and I guess that's the key thing, if you could explain to it, this is the scene, this is how the characters move, and this is how it should start and end, and you could say all of that and it would reproduce that, then 10 minutes, no problem. 1 minute, a 1 minute clip, that's a whole scene. That can be an entire scene at 1 minute. A little short, but string those together.
Yeah. Okay. So I looked at potentially being able to share the screen, and it's just going to look choppy and glitchy. So we're not going to walk you through that. I just popped the link in the chat, and we'll have it at the bottom of this video if you are in the information about the video. If you're watching later, definitely go check them out. It looks super realistic. I know from Jyunmi that one of the things that you want to pay attention to is how liquid moves, or something like that. And I think they're still not quite there. There is a demo video of what looks to be pink chocolate or goo or something that's like flowing out of on top of strawberries, which is why I think it's like chocolate-ish. And that doesn't pass the Jyunmi test for me. You can go check it out yourself in that list of 10 examples that I've popped in the chat. All right.
Right. You definitely want to look at liquid or water effects and hair. Those are always been problematic. I wanted to bring up Jen's comment. The improv duo Choppy and Glitchy. So who's Choppy and who's Glitchy? I think I'm Choppy. How's that?
I could definitely be glitchy. That's fine.
All right. So to keep in theme with the we'll say media side of AI, that story, the Sora story, that was great to bring up because I was definitely going to talk about it myself. I I like that you mentioned it about the adding of new features and how it got pushed back and things like that. And I have a feeling that if those were the main reasons, I mean, of course, the leak shut down all the beta access or alpha access or whatnot, but they're gonna run into a problem of the we need this feature because this feature's already come out. We can't our product can't compete if it doesn't have this feature. Well, unless you have more people power and more and more compute, which probably do, you can throw at your product. I don't know if you're going to catch up, you know, uh, and you might just want to release it now as a preview and a beta and say these features are coming out in this timeline, as opposed to just like, don't worry, we'll release it when it's perfect. Perfection and getting in the way of good, right, or something like that. All right, so go ahead.
No, right. Because I mean you're stuck because you're OpenAI, so you're the leader, but you're
Mhm.
admittedly behind in this. And the more you keep it behind doors, the more our imagination of like, oh yeah, no, you're waiting till it's good. You know,
Mhm.
just like good enough out the door, function slightly,
Yeah.
right?
I
Like,
mean, I think that was like Google's mantra forever when they put beta on everything,
right.
right? Like, I think Gmail was in beta after, I don't know, 10 years of being out in the wild. Oh, now it's officially not beta. It's like, come on, guys. Um, Jen has a question about the hair. So, yes, water and fingers in AI generation, hair in CG in general, right? Because hair has its own kind of physics, similar to how water has its own physics. So that's why I say hair. That's always been a speed bump in terms of crossing that uncanny valley for computer generated imagery and things like that. Okay, moving on to my next media story. So Play AI, formerly known as Play HT, uh, they are now talking about all of the features combined. And we did talk about this a little bit on a previous show. Karl had mentioned being able to, if you remember, Harold, the AI assistant, right? Um, but now they're pushing their features about voice cloning, right? They're probably the biggest competitor in terms of the space with 11 Labs, in terms of voice cloning, dubbing, all of those kinds of things. But one of the features that I really liked is Play Note, and this is definite. This has been compared to Google's Notebook LM, right? And we saw 3 weeks of people talking about Notebook LM and turning documents into podcasts and articles into podcasts, things like that. But you can do the same thing with Playnote. Now, here's the thing: Playnote allows you to access all of the voices that you've created or have available in the rest of Play AI. So not only could you just do your own podcast of whatever document you wanted, you could do any podcast and kind of put it out there, right? They have come under fire, according to this TechCrunch article, a little bit about their protections. They are very fast and adapt type of company, and so they have minimal type of protections for unauthorized voice cloning and things like that. But they say they have all these rigorous methods and things like that. And unfortunately, we have to just take everybody, all companies at their word that yes, we are preventing those kinds of things. We'll see. But the play note was the was the highlight that I wanted to point, because you know if you have a in the vein of lowering the barrier, and you had a topic that you always wanted to talk about, but you just didn't have the people to have the discussion, but you really wanted to explore a topic and create a podcast out of it, or content if you're in the creative side of things. This is a way to do it, right? You could simulate the conversation about the topic and create the opposing viewpoints if you wanted a debate or anything like that, and just really develop that format out. And I like that it takes the Notebook LM experience, and it said that the quality is similar, and expanded out from there. So that's why I thought it was interesting and important.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds so exciting, right? Because you we those Notebook LM voices are so ubiquitous now, right? I personally clearly think of them as friends, like it feels familiar and nice to me. Like, oh, it's my friends talking about whatever they're talking about again. But it's been a real complaint that not only could you not switch the voices to any other voices, but like wasn't even a thought that Google would let you create your own, right? Add a voice of your own. And people have been doing it by porting it into 11 Labs, and this is very, very cool. I love that. And I think a bunch of people are still using Notebook LM. They're just not talking about it as much anymore.
Right, right, right.
All
Okay,
right.
what do you got?
I got this is a story that's slightly older than a week, but it's so cool. I just needed to bring it.
All right.
And this is about, here we go. Um, so a company called, let me go to the top of the thing. Um, all right. So there was a test planned by a robotic company in China, and they were taking a tiny robot to go and talk to 12 big Chinese robots from a Shanghai showroom. So the tiny robot goes in, and what they wanted to know was how much the tiny robot could influence the large robots, and they were trying to see, and they scripted it out, right? So they knew what the tiny robot was going to say, and the test was whether was like what are the big robots going to do? Well, the tiny robot went off script, like, and the big robots said, yes. So the tiny robot said, are you working overtime? And the large robot says, I never get off work. Uh, and the tiny robot, which is named Erbai, Erbai. So you're not going home? And the large robot says, I do not have a home. And the tiny robot says, then come home with me, and then leads the way out of the showroom. So this was initially like a very viral thing. There was a lot of trying to figure out, like, well, this is hilarious. Is it real? Right? And there were some things that came out that said, yes, it's real. And it was a planned thing that didn't go exactly to plan. Like they weren't, it wasn't supposed to kidnap the robots out of the showroom, but sure. Hey, everybody, let's just go. right? And this is, I mean, it's adorable. It's funny. It's funny
Right.
that like David is leading the Goliaths out of the thing, but
Mhm.
also, it also highlights like so much of what we don't know, right?
That's true. That's true. And, it's always a mirror, right? Because it's all based off of the information and the what's out there for humanity. Um, you know, I'll only put one foot on the soapbox, but what was the first thing it did? Tried to get you to stop working and go home. It's like you work too much. You need to relax.
Well, once again, as we always say on this show and on the Sci-Fi show, it's been trained on all of what we have said
Yep.
about AI and robots on the internet.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So, all
Awesome.
right.
Yeah, no, that's great. But okay. I know there's only two of us, so there's not gonna be much of a weave going on here, but I do have a robot and cooperation type of story. Um, so uh so I went to Science Daily and I found there's research done by the University of Bristol, and they found that synchronized movement between robots and humans builds trust. So they did this study where they had humans act out a particular role, like firefighter and things like that, and how they would better learn to work with a robot in that case, because that's one of the big use cases that's being developed is for first responders in help and rescue and things like that. And so they ran them through this barrage of tests, and that the more work they did synchronized between the two, the more trust was built about robots being in that space, right?
Mm.
And the humans, it's like, oh, I know the robot's going to be there, or the robot's going to do this thing, so I can adapt to it. And they moved, and they could each move around each other because they knew that the human was going to be in a different space, and that that progress or movement synchronized between the two help build that trust, and they would become more effective. So just like the little robot and the big robot having a conversation and then going off to, I don't know, walk through a field of daisies or something like that, we have we have the what looks like the ability to work in tandem, right? And that's where we can get really good effective partnership between the embodied AI, aka robots, and humans. So that space has been discussed a while, because usually when especially industrial situations, when industrial robots are active, it's cordoned off, right? Oh, the robots are doing their thing. People don't go over there because the robots don't have the training to know when a person's there. There could be injury. Robots are hard metal. And we've seen a little. Can you just imagine if an industrial car building robot like just swung its arm and accidentally clipped you in the head? Not pleasant. So I've in the terms of, oh, let's look at all of the different aspects of AI development and human use or human interaction. This is definitely clearly in the safety and efficiency side of things. So I thought that was a pretty cool science story. Do you have another one ready to go, Beth?
I do have another one ready to go. So this is actually one that Jen sent me. Thank you,
Hmm.
Jen. When it was announced, President-elect Trump is considering naming an AI czar. Um, and and it's not going to be Elon Musk. Um, like that would be also a natural choice. But given Elon's role in the election and close relationship with Trump, we assume that he will have a fair amount of influence, whether he's the actual AI czar or not. Another thing that is important about that is because it's not an actual cabinet position, right? It's a made up thing right now. It's not something that needs to be approved by the Senate or advise. Like he can do it just with naming it and making it a thing. Um, and the idea behind it looks to be less regulation, right? So the AIs would be focused on the U.S. being able to move forward quickly. One of the things that I heard in terms of the comments is, so this looks good for everybody, but maybe OpenAI, right? Like, it is entirely possible that Elon's entire motivation, not, I mean, he's wanted to do this for a while, but if he can rub OpenAI's face in the dirt while doing it, he totally will, right? Like we all understand that. So so the more that we hear about the Trump administration and what they're doing in terms of AI, that's one of the things that I'm looking out for. Like, how is this benefiting? Like, are there regulatory things? Like, are they reading the kidnapping of the large robots by the small robot and going, sure, that seems like a research and development project, good for you? Or are they looking at that like, hey, maybe there's a little more regulation, some conversations, some benchmarks we want to hit? um so so yeah, Trump eyes AIs are to focus on making sure that the US is leading, or at least in if not leading, um at par. And the more that every time I hear something about the government being more involved or what they're trying to do, I keep going back to Aschenbrenner's essays about like why that's important.
Right.
Um, so
Yeah, why it's important to have a national uh, plan for AI.
yes,
Right. Well, tangentially connected in terms of US AI development, I got a couple of quick Anthropic stories. So, number one, they raised another $4 billion from Amazon, making AWS its primary training partner. So, essentially, Anthropic and AWS have been in the news as pseudo partners in, like, different aspects, not necessarily as big as of a connection as Microsoft and OpenAI have, right? Um, but it seems to, or it sounds like they're becoming more and more intertwined, and they want to use. So a lot of compute, right, is provided by various data centers, what exists already, and that's from our big computer companies, or our big cloud companies. AWS, one of the largest cloud services providers in the world. Google, cloud, they're also a huge provider. Microsoft has its own data centers for its own purposes and things like that. NVIDIA's talking about it, and we know that data centers is on everybody's to-do list for the next 5 years, right? So by naming AWS as its primary training partner, Anthropic is really getting into bed with AWS, with Amazon, because they want to use Amazon's specific training built chips, right, in their chipset, and those data centers that run that hardware for all of that training compute, right? And training is a huge overhead to any new models and things that are updates and things that are being developed on the AI side. So this is a clear line in the sand. Anthropic's going to be with AWS. OpenAI is with Microsoft. Google is Google. So we're going to see clearer, faction lines being developed out of this. Now, I think this is a really interesting move for Anthropic in combination with what I think is the more important, potentially important bit of news, and that's the model context protocol.
Yes.
Right? I was super excited when I heard about this. So, while not technically a international standard like from the IEEE or anything like that, Anthropic has put forth a de facto standard they're calling the Model Context Protocol, right? Or MCP. And what this is supposed to do is allow it's an open source or an open protocol that allows you to communicate with the AI model via your other sources, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's similar to the concept of an API, right? Here's your module, here's the protocol. This handles your communication. It allows for quick communication, for rapid updating, reading, writing, those kinds of things. And you can connect all of your sources through this protocol to the model. That means the model can you can use the inherent power of the model to go grab the information that's important to you, process it, and produce the result that you're looking for, right? Because what we're seeing from AI as a whole is it's result oriented as opposed to service or software oriented, right? It's not about the tool, it's about what you get at the end. So
Right.
the model is essentially the engine that is taking your information and giving the result that you asked for, you know?
Right.
So what they're hoping with Anthropic is hoping with the MCP is because it's open, they want to get developers accepting it and using it
Mm-hmm.
for implementation on all of the wonderful projects that they're working on, right? Because that's one of the biggest things that helps with development in the space is to
Mm-hmm.
have some certain standardizations. Normally they'll develop out of merit and other factors like that in the open source space. So Hugging Face, it's essentially a giant cauldron of mixing together different open source software models and all the necessary components, training and fine tuning and all of these different components that you can just try out and see what works together and what's most efficient. And then you come up with things like, Flux, that's what kind of comes out of it. So for Anthropic to create this pseudo or de facto standard for everybody, if it works really well and it's open so that it can be pulled apart and updated and built upon, that gives more ability or capability to everyone, and it's less
Right.
proprietary. OpenAI is sort of similarly going down the same path, but definitely in the more proprietary way. Like the works with apps is sort of has the same kind of features as what MCP is supposed to do,
Right.
but we really won't see for probably the next couple months if people like pick it up and run with it. I mean, if it doesn't really work, then people will just ignore it and move on to the next thing. AI has was it every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, something else is going to come out. It's like, oh, it's a new model. There you go. But yes, I was very excited about the protocol. I want to see more things like this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and considering Anthropic is making that deal with AWS, there's a whole almost kind of vertical integration thing going on here, right? If everybody uses Claude as the engine, AWS is the compute, and people can connect to it, and now Claude becomes more of a utility, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the utility AI that everyone just calls. It's like, oh, I need you to process this bit of information. I
Right.
need you to come up with this result, as opposed to building an entire system to give you what that result is going to be. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, It's sort of like a library in the sense that it's like, oh, I need you to do this thing for me. Okay, cool. Now I have what I need, and then that's where the rest of the result or product or tool is the output's going to be, and it's simply what lives out there in the cloud or in the ether doing uh, being the engine to produce the results you're looking for.
Right. I think one of the things that I really love about watching Anthropic and the road that they're taking is that they really are carving their own path, right? They're not trying to be, they're not searching the web, right? People are still like, what do you mean you don't have search? You should be able to access the real time. No, access real time on your own, right? Like they're setting up the ways that you can do that if that's what you want to do. Also, use Perplexity and choose Claude as your model that you're using Perplexity with. But they're not like they're trying to do what they do really, really well, and they're not trying to go super general. And one of the stories this week was that OpenAI is considering a browser, right? So that, and again, we've talked about OpenAI like definitely looking like they're trying to be your whole operating system. They want to be your word processor. Now they want to be your browser, those sorts of things. For me, it's the exact opposite of the path that Claude is taking. Now, Anthropic's much smaller compared to OpenAI, right? OpenAI is huge, has all the money. Anthropic is nimble, but I really like them staying on the path that they're staying on, and just like what comes out of that, if you just focus on that and what can be what kind of expertise can come out of that process. And personally, like, hey, if once again, Amazon, if you are engaged in this, like, can I when am I gonna have Claude on my lady wiretap that I'm not gonna say her name because she's gonna talk on right? I don't want her to talk right now. But like, I so want to be able to just like have a question that I would ask my digital roommate, like, hey, would you blah blah blah. It's a different, it feels like an unused path in my productivity. Yes, I have
Yeah,
Perplexity and ChatGPT's desktop, so I do know that I could do that in a different way. But if I have to click and switch screens, that doesn't do the same function for me as
right.
just calling across the room.
Yeah, exactly, and that's probably going to be the first implementation because isn't there a Claude and Lady Wiretap? Because I know sometimes I've activated just through the podcast. Um, is isn't there already an app, or you can kind of build that in
you
the
you can
AWS services?
build it in yourself. There was a news story like 5 months ago, 6 months ago, that Amazon was planning
Ah,
that was going to happen, and they were toying with whether they were going to charge for it and how much they were going to charge for it. I have to say, when I first heard the story, I was like, absolutely not. Now I'm like, how much? Because could I have it?
right. Well, I mean, it sounds like a no-brainers ad feature
Right?
ad for that device system because uh, we already know that advanced voice people have had great experience with just speaking, and it's already so common for people to just have the devices in their home, and when it's that whole translating an idea or thought into an instant result,
Right.
right? Hey, what about this thing? Oh, what do I got about this? Oh, I had this idea. Can you tell me some pros and cons? What are the problems with this thing? Those kinds of questions that everybody has, but is always like, oh, let me go look that up later. Now with a
Right.
phone, they could do it right then or whatnot. But you're, when you're talking about the number of interfaces, our absolute interface zero layer is, our day-to-day environment. I exist here.
Yeah.
If you can meet me closer to my base existence, then it's easier for me to use,
Right.
right? I mean, I've said it before. It's like I just want an all-in-one, and if that's the method, or I can do that, and then that's connected to another device that produces a physical result for me, that's even better. I'm waiting for the food 3D printers, honestly. You know, it's like make me a pizza. All right,
So
awesome. You know,
so the other thing about the building something to work with one of the voice activation devices, otherwise known as lady wiretaps, is that the voice part is built in. Right?
right,
It's like building routines for Siri also. You don't have to figure out that part. You just have to give it the trigger words that it's going to recognize to then go and run the thing. And that is actually really interesting because like what we're talking about with play.hi or notebook LM or those sorts of things, um, you're you're locked into what they allow you to do with
mm,
those voices.
right,
With this, you're locked into the voice, but it is your Lady Wiretap roommate, so hopefully you like it. And but then what you can do with it is a much wider stream of possibility. And I am curious how MCP will play into that. Like I want to go and look at that now.
right, and yeah, I like my head is bursting with like the capabilities, like
Yeah,
with MCP and with the deal with AWS, and I'm looking at Claude as that engine piece, and I'm like, well, then essentially, and Claude's really good at programming and things like that, and we've seen how people use the various features, and if all of that can just be called upon as needed, then you're one step away from personal agents, right? Because
right,
you can just make whatever calls you need. You just need that interface layer so that you can speak to it, your commands, and all those kinds of things. And then it's all results oriented. It's like, oh, these things need to be done. Okay, cool. Now we have our reasoning engine. Okay, cool. That figure out how to get to
yeah,
point B. And yeah, and the fact that all those key components are open source, that's what I really like. I really
yep,
like that. So I'm not locked in. I can be platform agnostic, and by being platform agnostic, you encourage each of them to work better, supposedly,
right,
to give you more capabilities. All
yeah,
right. So I wanted to move on, but I do have a science story that kind of ties in. And so, because you were talking about, because of those devices, those are what we would call edge devices, right? Or edge AI, right? Because they're on device, the AI is on device, and it provides a feature, capability, and it lives on the closest to us, right? We're talking about closest to our reality, or closest to our day to day. And so the Tokyo University of Science has come up with a technology, an AI technology that is potentially going to revolutionize edge AI devices. All right. So they came up with a device that mimics how our brain processes information, inspired by the after image effects that the eye creates. Okay. So this is on the optical side of things, right? And and so what the tech does is, it's number one, it's solar powered. It uses a solar cell, right? And um, it can read human, like, movement, like muscle movement, or it can read body functions and things like that. So it's energy efficient. It's uh, it's incredibly fast and accurate in reading the data, and it's really good about recognizing human movement. And because of it can handle all of that different type of data, in sequence, and over time, it's got a huge amount of versatility. It can be applied to lots of different options and applications. The researchers believe the quickest way for current applications is going to be like in health monitoring. So you could see this tech be in like smartwatches or medical devices, just to improve power efficiency and getting more accurate readings, things like that. Then you could see it in like dashboard cams, vehicle cameras, to recognize like pedestrians, just easily recognize what is a human around you, because it can recognize that the movement, the kinds of movement and those nuances that humans make. So there's a higher degree of accuracy in recognizing humans like around the vehicle, which, that's for safety purposes and things like that. So I see that easily applied to any Waymo powered, cars, robo taxis, whatever you want to call them. That's already starting to be used in some large cities, and of course will be more and more adopted over time. And so I asked Perplexity what are possible future capabilities, and one of the ones that it brought up was smarter, more efficient cities, because I mean we already have a highly monitored city life, right? Whether that be speed cameras or security cameras or all those kinds of things. But with the people movement, you could make your traffic lights and
Yes.
those supporting services far more efficient. So lowering traffic times, I think that'll get a big yes from commuters. Um, and then the other one that I really liked was environmental monitoring, because it's pattern recognition, things like that. So you could detect and predict natural disasters and climate changes more accurately. So if
Wow.
you're right, and there's already more science going into like tornado warnings and things like that. So I think it's up to like, I don't know, they were talking about using AI to based on like historical data and things like that to give them like 20 minutes or even longer. So that's more exciting. If you could predict, it's like, oh, there's going to be tornadoes later this afternoon, so please by 2 p.m. we'll lock everything down, or something like that. Which I think we're going to have to deal with more and more
Right.
as we go in the future, right? So,
But how
yes,
cool, like,
exciting tech.
if we look at that, if we combine those, right? How cool would it be that your taxi or your car understands what's happening weather-wise with the road at the time that it's happening and can reroute, right? So you can see all of those like rerouting happens, but the people who are in it are stuck because they're not able to access a side road. And that's because all the cars can't agree, right? Like you can't get all drivers to be like, all right, nope, we're all just going to back up. And then we're all going to feed out over here so that we can let the emergency people come in to fix whatever the thing is happening, or like how cool would that be just for it to be um for city traffic, because I do live in a city or outside of a city, to be responsive to the conditions that are just like current right now. This is the
Mhm.
condition right now. And you can see GPS do that a little bit. Like you're with a bunch of people driving and everybody's taking this side road. We're all using Google Maps, right? Like we're all using
Right.
Google GPS. Um, but something that could be even more responsive. And I remember an earlier show, and I'm sorry I don't remember which one it is, but we had talked about how cool it would be to have your car drive your car to wherever it was, wherever you needed to go, and then your car would just like sign itself into the Uber pool or whatever, and then it would be able to go around. Like drive your car to drop you off. You don't need to park because your car is going to go and do car things for somebody else. And then you need fewer cars in the city. And it sounds great. Yes. Sign
Oh,
me up.
yeah. Like, of course, I'm going to make movie references. So, if you've ever seen how cars function in the movies Demolition Man, or Total Recall, and Minority Report, there's variations on this. I think having these AIs, especially these edge AIs, in our current traffic systems, can then communicate with a device that you just install or have pre-built into your car that you can turn on and off manually when you either want to drive manually or be put onto the grid. And then the grid aligns everything. It's like, oh, you're on the grid now. Okay, cool. This is the most efficient way. Oh, hey, so and so, we're having some weather issues, so we're going to reroute here. Unfortunately, it'll add 60 seconds to your travel time. Things like that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing, I'm definitely looking forward to.
And
And I
fewer
believe
accidents, right? Like,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Just from the safety point of view, it's great. But I think the biggest gains that we'll get is it'll just be easier for commuting, right? For
yes.
wherever we need to go. And I do like the idea of that. And I think that was part of Elon's, whole robotaxi slash Robovan, um,
Robovin.
thing. Robovin, sorry, Robovin. Uh, the And part of that whole idea is that you would send it off and go Uber for you until you needed it again. We'll see how efficient that is. I mean, hey, if I lived in the city and I didn't need my own car, because I could just say, hey, car, okay, yeah, here you go. Yeah, I'm on duty. They have the taxi light. We can do it all retro and everything, and then
Yep.
just go and then do your thing. I
All
think
right.
that'd be awesome.
They're going to need, so city's going to need to find a different way of funding, right? Because the
Mm,
other piece of this is no more parking tickets and no more running red light tickets, right?
yeah.
And I think that's how you could sell it to the voters. Like, sure, I will never ever have a parking ticket again, and I will have my transportation. I would definitely be willing to consider it. Yeah. My head is going unintended consequences. What did I just agree to? This is just off the top of my head, but I like it.
Okay. Do you have another separate story? Because I got a dozen ready to go.
Go.
Okay. Well, I wanted to make sure that we finished up some more. We'll do some lightning round here. Number one, a company in India called Misho, which is like almost $5 billion evaluated company, big e-commerce site, right? Um, while they weren't specific on how specifically the AI had cut down their customer service costs or customer support costs, they did say their AI is a voice model that was able to respond to most customer requests. And it cut down some of their expenses by 75%. So we'll see if that's in labor. But one of the interesting things from this article that I was reading was that the way they built it is they built it off the shelf AI, right? They said, hey, we're not in the market or we're not in the ability, we don't have the ability to develop our own. So what we did was we took a bunch of different off the shelf AI, open source models to fine tune and cultivate a model that was really good at recognizing various Hindi dialects, languages, and things like that. Specifically because they said the vast majority of their customers or their customer sphere is on really low end telephones, and a lot of it is calls, like telephone calls, as opposed to through, like an automated system like a Zendesk or something like that. And so their model was able to cut through all the possible background noise, low quality of the voice, and things like that. And so I thought it was really interesting that this is a great example of one, applied AI in the business sphere, right? Of, hey, we were able to get some gains because of our to improve our current system. We used open source and off-shelf models, so pre-existing models, fine-tuned it to our own purposes using our own systems, our own data, things like that. And then we found a specific use. We pre-trained it, and we fine-tuned it to work for this exact capability, or this exact feature set. And all of that is a combination of everything that we've been kind of talking about, how businesses could implement AI on various levels for them. And this is an e-commerce company that just went to the AI store, grabbed pieces, smashed them together, smoothed them out a little bit, told it only work this way, go. And they saw 75% savings. So
Wow.
yeah. So I was like, that is a great example of how an enterprise, and a fairly large one, uh, implement AI right now.
Right.
Right. It's not like, oh, if we just wait 6 more months. It's like, no, you could do it right now. If that's the kind of gains you're going to get, 75% savings in some areas, then I don't know. I would say that looks great on the line item sheet. Just
Right.
saying.
And the other piece about that is that you've controlled the whole thing. You're not building on top of somebody else's model that's going to update something and give you great new features, but it breaks your current system, right? If
Right.
you take an open source model and manipulate it to the place where it's working for you, you get to choose when you upgrade,
Right.
right?
Okay. I just realized how long the show has lasted. So sorry. There I go, babbling. All right, really quick. I want to do some AI and media real quick. IMAX embraces AI to expand original content reach.
Wow.
Right. So we're talking. So apparently, PwC said entertainment media industry grew 5% to 2.8 trillion in 2023, and looking for annual growth rate of nearly 4% to 3.4 trillion. So these are huge market growths. IMAX is trying to take advantage of AI to help expand their reach
Right.
to, to take part of this industry. And they're going to use AI for localization. So if you're not familiar with the term, it just means converting to whatever language that is in the
Oh,
region in which you want
wow.
to distribute, right? So we've talked about voice cloning. We've talked about lip syncing. We've talked about 11 Labs and the work they're doing by taking your voice, using your accent, creating a clone of that to speak in other languages and lip sync that with your content. So that tech exists now, and IMAX is looking at doing, not necessarily working with 11 Labs, but doing that kind of thing to enhance their ability to create localizations. IMAX is a fantastic format. Canadian company, I didn't know. So, that I learned today. And, huge theaters. I think the IMAX experience is something that everyone should experience at least once in their life. It is fantastic and immersive. But to focus on using AI for localizations does mean it lowers the barrier and more people can experience IMAX films, IMAX content in a larger audience, which I think that's great. More people, more access, expand your horizons. Other than that, YouTube Shorts Dream Screen. technically medium, but it could be fun. It's essentially Dream Screen is an AI powered green screen for everybody. Your backgrounds can be replaced with fantastical environments that the AI will develop. So if you are a small screen content creator or a vertical content creator, this is what they're
Yeah.
focusing on. It's all about YouTube Shorts and stuff like that. And the article I was reading, thank you TechCrunch for putting your 2 cents in. It is a feature that TikTok does not currently offer its users. So I'm sure that is a play for YouTube to take more of, try to recover some market share and users from TikTok.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
I think that's gonna be it.
So tomorrow is Thanksgiving in the U.S. We are going to do a use case gratitude, an insight show. So how we're using AI or how you can use AI to gain some insight. And Friday is what is Friday? Friday is ChatGPT's happy birthday because I was like, dang, I do put the shows together. Yes, ChatGPT turns 2 on Saturday, so we're gonna take a look at the 2 years of ChatGPT on Friday and talk a little bit more about that. Hope you join us.
Awesome. And thank you, everybody in chat, Jen, Gwen, Justin, everybody joining us, and all of you who are watching. Your interaction, your comments, and just watching the show really gives us a motivation and makes it exciting to show up every day. So please join us tomorrow. And if you can't join us tomorrow, always remember to go to the dailyaishow.com and sign up for our newsletter and all that jazz. All right. Until tomorrow. See you, everybody. Aloha.